She kissed him in front of me. My wife. My boss. Same godforsaken room. And the worst part? I poured the coffee. Bold roast, I said, because apparently my mouth keeps doing customer service even when my heart is melting through the floor. The mug rattled like a guilty dog's tail on the conference table. He grinned at her. That $400 haircut with the "I don't pay for anything under $400" confidence. She leaned in. Red blazer, clean citrus perfume, her wedding band winking like a practical joke, and pressed her mouth to his. Not a Hollywood kiss. A careful one. Practiced. Polite. The way you set a glass down on a grand piano. My brain did the math and wrote 0 in every square. You're awake, right? Unfortunately. Okay, I said to the ceiling. Okay. No one moved. The projector hummed. The AC thrummed. The skyline outside blinked like a lie detector. Her eyes slid back to me, cool blue and apologizing to no one. Evan, she said, we didn't want you to find out like this. Lie number 1. You ever notice how liars always build a soft nest for their knives? Didn't want. As if there weren't 10 ways to not kiss your boss until I left the room to pee. My boss, Christopher Hart, but the staff called him the heart attack when he wasn't there. Picked up the clicker like he was about to sell me a timeshare in hell. Let's keep this professional, he said. This is professional. I asked, is there a slide for this? He looked at the glass wall, where our blurred reflections floated like ghosts who hadn't gotten the memo. He adjusted his cufflinks. I counted to 5. When you get punched in the soul, counting keeps you from hugging the floor. This is where I should have walked, I tell you. Here. Right here. Instead, I set down the tray and sat. Because I'm diligent. Because I believe in finishing meetings and marriages. She folded her hands. Wedding band again. God, that ring. I remember saving 6 months for it, choosing the smallest diamond that still looked like yes. I remember her crying at the kitchen table when I slid it across the wood. We're a team, she'd said then, voice soft as dish soap. 2 years later, that same voice. Evan, this merger is complicated. Oh, I said. Is that what we call it now? Hart cleared his throat. We're not here to humiliate you. Then stop, I said. Silence. The kind that whistles in your ear. I looked at her, Mura. My wife. One half of my emergency contact. She had that poise she wears like Spanx, the kind that makes people hand her projects and passwords. A tiny freckle near her left eye, the one I used to kiss when I closed deals, like it was a button that lit the world. How long? I asked. She met my eyes as if the answer were an invoice. 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. A quarter. A trimester. My stomach did a slow roll. In the corner of the room, the ficus drooped like it knew gossip. Congrats, I said. That's a whole quarter. You folks going to report it in earnings? Hart bristled. Enough with the sarcasm, Evan. This is hard. For you. I laughed. It came out paper thin. Why are we doing this here? Because, she said, we need to talk about what happens next. What happens next? I love corporate verbs. They stack like cardboard boxes and smother you politely. I glanced at the door. Glass room off the main bullpen. Everyone pretending not to look. My team pretending not to look. I could see Adam wandering by, holding a stapler like he just found religion in office supplies. The world had this fluorescent smear to it, like reality was buffering. Let me guess, I said. You've prepared a deck. Hart actually smiled. He thought I was joking with him, like the boys. He tapped the clicker. The screen popped to a slide with tasteful navy font. Transition planning. Of course, I said. Of course you did. He clicked through bullet points like a mortality checklist. We need to avoid disruption during the acquisition. We need to handle communications. We need to escalate the. We need to divorce? I offered. Her mouth tautened. Let's keep the language. Careful. Careful. I pictured her brushing her teeth beside me this morning, spitting mint foam into the sink like secrets. Careful. I pictured Hart's hand on the small of her back now. Firm, proprietary. He didn't. But I had the phantom image anyway. That's how betrayal works. It supplies footage you didn't see. Look, Hart said, hands flat. I respect you. You built the Southwest portfolio. That's not changing. We're just making personal adjustments that. Personal adjustments, I repeated. Like rearranging furniture. Just slide the husband to the storage unit and bring the boss closer to the window. He sighed. You're angry. I'm awake, I said. It's new to me. Mara shifted, crossing her legs, the precise whisper of fabric on fabric. Evan, we didn't plan it. Line number 2. You don't end up in a conference room kissing someone by accident. You don't coordinate calendars, hotel keys, alibis by accident. Accidents are coffee spills. This was choreography. I look at you now and tell you, I am not the guy who flips tables. I label the Tupperware. I iron the collars. I pay the balance the day the bill hits. You think that makes me safe? It actually makes me dangerous, because it means I notice everything. Did you use the watch? I asked. Her eyelids lifted. What? The Apple Watch, I said. The one I gave you for your birthday. For the coordination. Heart groaned. Jesus. She tracks her ovulation on it. I said to him, pleasant as a receptionist. Or did. 3 months. That's halfway to a new tradition. Her lips parted. Not guilt. Irritation. I filed that away under you still think you're the smartest one here. Hart held up a hand. Let's reset. We asked you here because we wanted to be transparent before the town hall. The town hall? I asked. You're going to announce your affair like Q3 guidance? Not that, he said quickly. The merger. We're telling the company at 4. We didn't want you blindsided. Given everything. The room twisted. Right, the meeting on the calendar. 4 p.m. All hands. Big news. Capitalized and cheerful. Confetti emoji. I thought it was the usual parade. New logo, new dental, new everything. I didn't realize my marriage was getting acquired too. And, she added, we're restructuring. There it was. The real kiss. The one that lands in your wallet. I laughed. It was ugly. So, I lose the job and the wife before happy hour? Efficient. No one said lose, Hart inserted. We're offering lateral movement. Potentially even up, but in another office. Which office? I asked though I knew. Denver, he said. Temporary. 6 months. Denver. Snow and altitude and boxed up life. The opposite direction of the house we just renovated. The kitchen we stacked subway tile in until midnight. Her hair in a knot. Music low. The drawer that sticks because we put it in ourselves, badly. 6 months, I repeated. And you two stay here. Pure coincidence. Mara's voice softened like a cushion. Evan, it's cleaner. For who? I said. Say it, Mara. Say who it's cleaner for. She folded, just a little. For everyone. You ever watch a magician's hand, the one doing nothing? That's the one that matters. While we wrestled with words, Hart slid an envelope across the table. Manila, thick. My name on it in HR font. What's that? I asked, but my fingers were already there. A proposal, he said. Clarity. If you accept, we can keep this cordial. I didn't open it. Not then. The weight of it did enough talking. It sounded like the end of something that had been ending for a while. I need air, I said. The words belonged to a stranger who had borrowed my lungs. Evan, she started. I stood. The glass door stuttered under my hand. Outside, the office smelled like printer heat and stale cookies. The kind HR puts out so you forget they're counting the minutes you cry in the bathroom. Adam intercepted me at the edge of the bullpen. Hey, boss, he said, too cheerful. Town hall at 4:00. You okay? Fantastic, I said. You ever see a magic trick? He blinked. Twice. Of course he did. Back in the conference room, through the glass, I saw Hart angle close to her, speaking low. She nodded. She pressed her fingers to her temple like the world had a dial, and she was just adjusting the volume. My wife. My boss. Same godforsaken room. I could still taste the coffee I poured for them, burnt and sweet. I tell you now, the envelope wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing I already knew what was inside. Salary grids, relocation terms, a non-disclosure with a muzzle baked into the clauses, and that a sliver of me, the tidy part, wanted to sign it just so the mess would stack neatly in a box. This is where I should have walked. Instead, I went back in. I didn't blink. Not because I'm stoic, but because if I moved even an eyelash, they'd see the quake inside me. Her hand was still on his chest. My wife. My boss. Same godforsaken room. Did you need something, Daniel? Victor's voice cut through the silence like a blade dipped in honey, smooth, but sharp enough to bleed you before you realize you're hurt. I swallowed. My throat felt like I'd been chewing dry sand. Just the quarterly numbers, I said, holding up the folder like a peace offering. He smirked, glanced at my wife, then back at me. She was just congratulating me. Big client landed. Congratulating. That's what they call it now? Her lipstick was smudged, left corner. The same cherry red she said was too much for me, but apparently not for the man who signs my paycheck. She didn't say a word. Not hi. Not sorry you had to see that. Nothing. Just pulled her hand back slowly, like she was savoring the aftertaste. I stepped in, placed the folder on Victor's desk, and caught the faintest trace of her perfume, jasmine and something bitter underneath. My stomach turned. He flipped the folder open without looking at it. We'll talk numbers later. Close the door on your way out. I looked at her. This is where I should have walked. Just turned, let the door hit me on the way out, and started planning my escape. But no, I stayed. Sure, I said, but my voice was ice. But maybe after we're done talking numbers, we can talk boundaries. That got his attention. His smile twitched, just enough for me to know I'd drawn blood. Her eyes flicked to mine, a warning, don't. I closed the door anyway. Not to leave. To lock it. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, the kind that looked like it cost more than my car. His eyebrows climbed just enough to make it clear he thought I'd lost my mind. Locking my office door, he said. That's bold. That's survival. I replied, walking toward the table in the center of the room. Because I'm not doing this in the hallway like some side character in my own life. Mara crossed her arms, classic defensive stance. Her nails were fresh, pale pink, the same shade I'd noticed yesterday when she was texting someone in the kitchen at 11 p.m. Phone tilted away from me. I thought it was her sister. Guess not. Daniel, she started. You're... No, I cut her off. You got your say in the form of that. I motioned between them. Now it's my turn. Victor's jaw flexed. You're treading on thin ice, son. There it was. Son. The way older men use it when they're about to pat you on the head and send you away with your dignity folded into a paper airplane. You know what's funny, Victor? I said, leaning on the table. You call me son, but I've been the one cleaning up your messes for 4 years. Client blow-ups, missed deadlines, shady expense reports. His eyes narrowed. Careful. Mara shifted in her seat. I noticed the way she was looking at me now. Less pity, more calculation. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I'd say in front of him. Careful. I laughed, short and sharp. You kissed my wife in front of me. That ship sailed. Silence. The air in the room felt thick enough to chew. Victor steepled his fingers. If you're trying to leverage this. I'm not trying, I said. I'm telling you. You're going to make my transition. I glanced at Mara, then back at him. Out of this company very, very comfortable. Because if you don't, the board's going to hear about more than just this little HR violation. His face didn't move, but his hand went to the pen on his desk. That was his tell. Always was. When he was cornered, he needed something to hold. Mara finally spoke, voice low. Daniel, what do you want? I looked at her for a long moment. I want you to remember this moment, I said. Because it's the last time either of you gets to decide for me. And then I smiled. Slow. The kind of smile that makes people wonder if you know something they don't. Because I did. I let the silence stretch until it creaked. Mara's eyes darted to Victor, and Victor didn't move. He just kept that pen in his hand like it might save him from whatever was coming. You're stalling, I said. You think if you wait me out, I'll calm down, backpedal, maybe even apologize for making this awkward. But here's the thing. I leaned forward, palms flat on the table. I came prepared for this meeting. Just not the kind you planned. I reached into my bag and pulled out a black folder. Not company issue. My issue. I slid it across the table toward him, slow enough for them to feel the weight. What's this? Victor asked, his voice dipping a note lower. Your expense reports, I said. The ones finance didn't see. The ones that don't match your corporate card logs, but do match the little boutique hotel you like in Austin. Room service for 2. And funnily enough, the dates line up with Mara's work trips. Mara froze, then forced a laugh. You've been spying on me? Call it recon, I said. I learned from the best. You remember 3 months ago, Mara? You were late coming home from strategy planning. You told me you'd been stuck in traffic on I-35. Meanwhile, I got an email receipt from your tablet. Champagne for 2, billed to Victor's suite. Victor set the pen down. Daniel, you don't want to go down this road. Oh, I'm already halfway to the end of it, I said. See, the board might forgive an affair. Hell, They might even forgive you for lying to HR. But cooked books? That's another animal. Mara's face tightened, not because of the morality, but because she knew exactly how bad it would get if I pulled that trigger. You wouldn't, she said. I smiled. I would. And the best part? I don't even have to. I could just leave this folder on the copier. Let the rumor mill do the rest. You know how this place loves a good scandal. Victor sat back, his mouth a thin line. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his head, calculating the damage, measuring the payout he'd have to throw at me to keep me quiet. I'm listening, he said finally. Good, I said. Then let's talk terms. I didn't sit back down. Let them feel me standing over them. First, I said, I'm not going to Denver. Victor's eyebrow flicked up. That's not negotiable. It is now, I said. I'll stay here. In my office. With my accounts. You want me gone? It's going to cost you more than you're willing to admit to the CFO. Mara's voice was careful, the kind of tone you use with an unstable customer service rep. Daniel, that's not practical. I turned to her. Practical is me pretending I didn't just walk into the middle of an office romance between my wife and my boss. This is personal. Victor folded his arms. You're trying to blackmail me. Not trying. Succeeding. I said, leaning forward so my hands pressed against his desk. Second condition, my severance gets bumped to 1 year's salary. Full benefits. And that bonus we've been deferring because the quarter was tight, that lands in my account by Friday. He started to speak, but I cut him off. Third, I get the Denver relocation budget in cash. You can tell accounting I took it to scout apartments. I don't care what story you spin. Victor's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Daniel, Mara said, trying for sympathy now, you can't think this is healthy. For any of us. I laughed, short, humorless. You think we're talking about health? We passed that exit about 10 miles back. This is survival. Victor's eyes locked on mine. And if we don't agree? I tapped the black folder. Then I let gravity do the work. You know how fast things fall around here. The room went still. For the first time since I'd walked in, Victor wasn't in control. Finally, he said, you'll get your terms. But you'll sign an NDA so tight you'll choke on it. I smiled. Send it to my lawyer. Oh. I turned toward Mara. And you might want to pack your desk before the rumor mill beats you to it. Her face didn't move, but her knuckles whitened around the arm of the chair. I unlocked the door. The air outside the room felt different, lighter somehow. But I knew the real move was still in my pocket. Because here's what neither of them knew yet. Victor wasn't the only one I had a folder on. I didn't go back to my office. I took the long way, past the bullpen, past the glassy-eyed juniors pretending not to notice I'd just locked myself in with the CEO and my wife. Let them wonder. Half the game is giving people something to whisper about. By the time I got back to my desk, my phone buzzed. An email from Victor's assistant, subject line draft NDA. Fast movers when the walls are on fire. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out a second black folder from my drawer. Thinner than the first, but sharper. Mara's. It had started as curiosity 6 weeks ago, the night she worked late, and came home smelling like gin and something else I couldn't place. I checked our shared cloud account out of habit, the one she forgot auto-syncs her phone photos. Most of it was innocent. Zoe's birthday last year, the dog asleep in our bed. But buried between a dozen work screenshots was a blurry image of a man's hand. Not Victor's. Different watch, cheaper suit. I followed the thread. Emails to a personal Gmail, Venmo payments labeled yoga retreat, and a single plane ticket booked under a name I didn't recognize. She'd paid for it. One way. It wasn't just Victor. She'd been running 2 plays at once. So when Victor thought I was bluffing with his folder, I knew I had more than enough ammo to burn them both down without lifting a finger. The thing about people like Mara, they think their secrets are safe because they've compartmentalized them. Work life in one box, personal life in another. What they forget is that someone who's been paying attention all along knows exactly where the lids don't fit. I picked up my phone, typed a message to her, then deleted it. No, better to save it. Drop it at the right moment, when she thinks she's navigated this storm clean. That's the trick. You don't flip the last card until the other players are already counting their chips. Through the glass wall, I saw her heading for the elevator, hair perfect, face unreadable. But I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding band anymore. That was fine. Rings come off easy. What's harder is removing the story people tell about you once it's in circulation. And I was about to start telling hers. I caught her just as the elevator door slid open. Mara. She turned like she'd been expecting me, and hating that she was right. I have a meeting. You have 2 minutes, I said, stepping inside with her before she could decide otherwise. The doors closed. Small box, too much perfume, not enough air. She crossed her arms. If this is about the folder stunt, it's not. I hit the stop button. The car jolted to a halt between floors. This is about insurance. Her eyes narrowed. Against what? I pulled the thinner black folder from under my arm and tapped it against my palm. Against you deciding to turn this into a narrative where I'm the bitter husband, the unstable one, the reason you had to do what you did. Her laugh was brittle. You really think anyone would believe? I don't need them to believe. I cut in. I just need them to hear. And they will. Everyone. From your new friends in marketing to your mother's bridge club. The smile faltered. What are you talking about? I flipped the folder open just enough for her to see the first page. A printout of her email confirming a one-way ticket to Phoenix, purchased on her personal card but sent from her work account. Under it, a Venmo transfer to a name she wouldn't want Victor or anyone Googling. Her face went still. Not shock. Recognition. You've been tracking me? She asked, voice low. No, I said. I've been noticing you. Big difference. She tried to recover. So what? I went to see a friend. A friend with a wedding registry, I said, my tone flat. Funny how his date just happens to match the weekend you told me you were at your sister's. Silence. I leaned closer, just enough for her to see I wasn't bluffing. You're not my only problem, Mara. But you are my only unfinished one. So here's the deal. You keep your story clean, you don't try to use this to poison my name, and this folder never leaves my desk. Her eyes flickered, calculating. And if I don't? I smiled. Then I don't have to say a word. I just let it leak. The elevator stayed still. Her breathing changed, slower, heavier. You wouldn't survive the fallout either, she said finally. I shrugged. Maybe not. But I've already lost the marriage and the job. What's left to burn? The light in her eyes dimmed. That's when I knew she believed me. I pressed the button again. The elevator lurched back to life. When the doors opened, she stepped out without looking back. Which was fine, because she knew I'd be watching. Victor called me into his office the next morning. No Mara this time. Just him, a crystal glass of something brown, and that fake relaxed posture he uses when he's about to slide a knife across the table instead of into your back. Close the door, he said. I did. He gestured to the chair. You've made your point. You want money, I'll give you money. But you need to understand how this game works. People who take a payout leave quietly. They don't linger. I sat, letting him think he was running the meeting. And I'm not in the habit of overpaying employees to turn around and watch them start fires. There it was. The trap. He'd offered just enough to tempt me, lace the agreement with a clause or two that would sink me the moment I so much as hinted at what went down. He slid an envelope across the desk. Manila again. It's all there. 1 year's salary, bonus, relocation budget. In exchange, you sign this, and you're out by Friday. I didn't touch it. And what happens if I say no? He smiled like a man who'd already dug the grave. Then I take the fight to you. And believe me, I can make you look like an unstable liability before lunch. I leaned back, met his eyes. You ever notice how liars always get real confident right before they run out of room? His jaw twitched. I stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city spread out like a board game we both thought we'd been winning. Victor, I'm not turning down your money. I'm just not signing your version of the story. He didn't answer, but I heard the ice clink in his glass. I turned, pulling my phone from my pocket. Because right now, sitting in drafts, is an email with 2 attachments, your folder and hers. 1 click, and they're in the inboxes of 3 board members who already don't trust you. And here's the kicker. I smiled. You won't know when I hit send. For the first time, he looked smaller. Still dangerous, but smaller. You're playing a dangerous game, Daniel. Good, I said, heading for the door. Means we're finally playing the same one. It happened faster than I expected. By Tuesday morning, the office buzz had shifted from low static to full-on electric storm. Heads leaned together in doorways. Slack messages popped like popcorn. Even the interns were whispering. I hadn't sent the email. Not yet, but someone had. At 9:17 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Enjoy the show. No signature. No need. By 9:30, a board member's assistant was in the building, unannounced, unsmiling, walking straight to the executive floor. From my desk, I could see Victor's office door shut behind them. The blinds stayed open, though. I caught a glimpse of his face as he listened. Tight. Pale. That glass of whiskey from yesterday was gone, replaced by a bottle of water he didn't touch. At 10:12, Mara walked in. She didn't knock. She closed the blinds. This is where I should have gone back to work, pretended not to care. But I stood anyway, wandered down the hall under the guise of grabbing coffee, and lingered near the copier. Voices. Raised. Hers first. Should have told me. Then his. Contained until someone. Then both. Over each other. Until the assistant's calm tone cut through. 3 minutes later, the door opened. Mara came out first, eyes flashing. Not fear, not guilt. Anger. The kind you aim at someone you thought was your shield. Victor followed, face blank, but the muscles in his neck told the real story. He scanned the hall, landed on me. We held each other's stare for 2 beats. Long enough for him to know I hadn't moved yet, but I could. The board had the files. Whether they believed them didn't matter. The seed was planted, and in a company like this, perception blooms faster than truth. I went back to my desk, sipped my coffee, and waited. Because the best part of a storm isn't when you cause it. It's when you realize you don't have to lift a finger for it to hit land. The summons came at 4:02 p.m. Subject line, Executive Committee, urgent. No pleasantries. No agenda. Just a location, the 12th floor conference room. I walked in to find Victor at the head of the table, Mara to his right, and 3 board members already seated like judges in expensive suits. The air had that sterile chill, the kind that makes you check if someone left the window open. But it wasn't the HVAC. It was the temperature drop when power shifts. One of the board members, Harding, gave me a polite nod. Mr. Hale, please sit. I didn't. Before we start, can I ask why I'm here? Harding folded his hands. Because certain documents were circulated that raise questions about conduct at the highest level of this company. And your name appears as both a source and a subject. I glanced at Victor. He looked carved from ice, but his knuckles were white against the armrest. Mara didn't look at me at all. Harding continued. We've reviewed expense irregularities, travel overlaps, and personal entanglements. His gaze flicked between the 3 of us. We need clarity before we decide how to proceed. Victor jumped in, voice smooth. This is a misunderstanding fueled by a disgruntled employee. Daniel has had performance issues. I laughed. Short. Sharp. Performance issues? That's rich, coming from the man billing the company for hotel suites during quarterly losses. A ripple went through the board members. One, a woman named Chun, spoke up. We saw the receipts, Victor. What we're trying to determine is whether these actions were sanctioned, hidden, or... She trailed off, letting the implication hang. Mara finally spoke. This is a personal matter that's being weaponized. Personal, I said, cutting in. You kissed the CEO in a glass conference room during office hours. That's not personal. That's policy violation in 4K. Harding raised a hand. Mr. Hale, are you admitting to distributing these documents? I smiled. I'm admitting to noticing things. Whether those things traveled on their own or with a little help, I'll let you decide. Victor leaned forward. You think you can bluff your way into a payout, Daniel, but all you've done is make yourself unemployable. I stepped closer to the table, flattening my palms against its glossy surface. Maybe, or maybe I've made myself the one person you can't fire without admitting everything the board's already halfway convinced is true. You can cut me loose, but you'll go down with me, and you know it. Chun looked at Harding. Harding looked at the 3rd member, Morales. Silent signals passed between them like static. Finally, Harding spoke. Here's what we're prepared to offer. You both, he nodded to Victor and me, leave your roles. Daniel, you receive 1 year severance plus accrued bonuses. No relocation, no rehire clause, mutual NDA. Victor, you resign effective immediately. Mara, you'll be reassigned until HR completes its review. Mara's head snapped toward them. You can't. Actually, they can, I said. It's called a consequence. You should try it sometime. Victor didn't look at me. He stared at the table, the way people stare at caskets they didn't expect to see so soon. Harding slid 2 envelopes across the table, one to me, one to Victor. You can sign now, or take them to counsel. But this is the only offer you'll get before we take it public. I took mine without opening it. I'll have my lawyer call in the morning. Victor muttered something I didn't catch. Maybe my name. Maybe something else. It didn't matter. When I turned to leave, Mara finally looked at me. Not hate. Not guilt. Just the dawning realization that her ending had been written by someone else. In the elevator down, I opened the envelope. Numbers good enough to make walking easy. Numbers bad enough to remind me they still thought they'd gotten the better deal. Maybe they had. Or maybe the better deal was knowing that for once, in that godforsaken room, I didn't pour the coffee. I poured the gasoline, and let them light the match themselves.